Welcome everyone, Christine here with a discussion about Total War Warhammer 3 Immortal Empires, and an update from Creative Assembly on patch 6.1, as well as the campaign AI beta. So first off, they've decided to delay the release of 6.1 from mid-March to Tuesday on March 25th. Now, it is not particularly great that we've had the release of 6.0, and there are plenty of issues that came with 6.0. Some of them have been fixed, to be sure, but there's still plenty of updates that Creative Assembly should have been implementing weeks ago on the subject of various lords, various races, various issues. Like ranged combat has plenty of problems in the game at the moment that people have talked about. They're still talking about that. We haven't heard anything on that subject. But regardless, we at least have a planned release date for 6.1 on a specific date. So that at the very least is a good update. We know when it's going to come out. On top of that, we also have a fairly substantial change made to Ostankya that is going to be coming out in 6.1. There are other issues to be certain on the subject of Ostankya, but a lot of people, including myself, considered it ridiculous that you have a new Kislev legendary lord and you have her all the way in Nagrand. But now you're going to have a choice between either staying in Nagrand or leaving for Kislev. If you stay in Nagrand, you get 20 Spirit Essence. If you go for Kislev, you get the Daughter's Return, and also all the Kislev building chains will be unlocked, and you'll get like that 10 turn benefit. I'm curious to see what that 10 turn benefit is going to be for Ostankya. I'm also curious to see if it's something that we will potentially be able to abuse in a similar way that we've been able to abuse things with Alfarian or things with Gelt. Hopefully not. And hopefully things will be better with regards to Ostankya's campaign. But keep in mind, her starting position is only part of the problem that she actually does have in her campaign. There are other issues as well, and I'll talk about those in just a second. But first off, let's go over the beta feedback that they have gotten. More than 50,000 campaigns were starting in the beta, 65% of these continuing past the early game. The most popular campaign difficulty level was very hard for people who played in beta, followed by legendary, and second in normal and third. This is very different from the live game, where normal dominates as the difficulty level of choice, and legendary is the least popular option. So the team is taking this caveat into consideration and proceeding accordingly. Now, here's the problem of the different difficulty levels in Warhammer 3. It's not just a question of like, oh, the AI gets better resources on higher difficulties. It's not just that. The AI also behaves differently, more aggressively on higher difficulties and less aggressively on lower difficulties. And I don't think this is how Total War should work. Just gonna keep that aspect in mind. I really don't believe that's how Total War AI should function. It should be a case that if the AI has resources, regardless of the difficulty you're playing on, even on easy, it should be using those resources. The problem that you have right now in the game, and even the issue that still existed in the beta, is the fact that what the AI would do is, the AI is too aggressive on higher difficulties to the point that it literally suicides itself trying to take settlements because it thinks it can win when auto-resolve, and then it can't. And I'm talking here just AI on AI action, really. I've seen that plenty of times, or the AI making really questionable decisions just because it's very aggressive on higher difficulties. But then on lower difficulties, it is way too passive. And there's no real good middle ground on that. Maybe hard, I suppose, or hard is as close as you're going to get to a good middle ground on that subject. But it's certainly an issue that I'm hoping Creative Assembly is going to address. The query system changes to stop treating AI to stop the AI treating enemy agents the same way as enemy armies. That is going to be implemented in 6.1. aggression and faction potential changes will not be included in 6.1 because they saw a significant number of people expressing concerns about second-order effects, unintended consequences on the subject, which they will be addressing before they put those changes live. One example of a second-order effect is how faction potential changes made minor factions significantly easier to defeat for major factions. This in turn caused electro factions to perish too early and to be ineffective even when brought back. I'm kind of curious about that subject because I played the beta, to be sure. And with respect to electro-count factions, be it live or the beta, yeah, they can die very quickly on higher difficulties. Keep that aspect in mind. But at the same time, that's just part of the campaign experience if you're playing as Karl Franz, trying to keep those alive. And to be sure, minor factions being useless, I mean, that really wasn't that different between live and beta. But I'm curious to know what Creative Assembly considers perishing too early. Because if you're looking at Midland, if you're looking at Honkland, if you're looking at Stirland, if you're looking at Ostermark, yeah, they do get wiped out very quickly because those are factions that start at war with major factions. And you look at Festus, you look at Draika, you look at Kazrak. I mean, sure, Kazrak is a joke, really. I mean, Midland starts at war with two factions. Maybe that's the bigger issue right there. Or you look at Marienburg. Yeah, Kemmler is wiping those guys out. The reason Kemmler wipes those guys out is they're a very easy faction for him to defeat. There are significant benefits in Marienburg, and I'm not sure how the AI works with respect to those kind of settlements, but Marienburg is an extremely valuable settlement. It's very easy for Kemmler to wipe them out, at least if you're playing on Legendary. I'm just speaking from my perspective on Legendary difficulty. So maybe that is concerned, but to be honest, part of it is the way the map is designed. There's many issues that go into this, as opposed to just minor factions being too weak and major factions being too strong. Then there's the anti-player bias that people would like them to spend more time looking at, okay? And they're going to focus on that in the second beta. And there are a number of reports around the AI exhibiting suicidal behavior. The AI has been exhibiting suicidal behaviors on Legendary difficulty or higher difficulties for a very, very long time. It is not new, to be certain, on this subject. Maybe now Creative Assembly has finally realized that this is an issue, but it certainly has been an issue since day one. It's not new. Like, the AI being suicidal with its resources is not some piece of news, I should add, on the subject. Maybe CA just doesn't understand necessarily how their game works. Or maybe the data they're using, like, if most people play on normal, and they do play on normal, I know this for a fact, that they do play on normal. If most people play on lower difficulties, right, where the AI is more passive as opposed to too aggressive on higher difficulties, then maybe that data is misleading Creative Assembly. But if you put the AI aggressiveness higher, which already inherently happens on higher difficulties like Legendary very hard, then maybe CA realized that, yeah, this is an issue for years down the line. A bit ridiculous, I'm gonna say that on the subject. I'm just taking the piss on them with respect to this. But anyway, they're hoping to bring the second beta around a week after 6.1 is released. So that's what they have to talk about 6.1. So really, we get some understanding of what they're seeing with regards to campaign AI beta, how people react to that, the issues that they consider relevant. And we're also getting information on what they're going to change. Some information on what they're going to change to Ostankya. Hopefully it will be more than just the starting position potential. Because Ostankya's campaign is not just bad because of her starting position. In fact, the starting position of Ostankya's campaign is the least of her problems. To be sure, being able to get all the Kislev building chains unlocked from the beginning will be a significant benefit in her campaign, because that is actually the bigger issue. It's not the fact that Ostankya starts far away from Kislev, as ridiculous as that is. The problem from a gameplay standpoint with Ostankya is, yeah, she has a lot of things locked out, and it takes you a while to get back to Kislev, and that's not great. And it's also not great if we stay in Nagrand, that's going to be the case. But yeah, it never makes sense. I understand to a degree why they wanted to go for that diversity in starting locations with Shadows of Change, because one of the criticisms that they got with Forge of the Cast Dwarves is that the starting locations were too close to each other, and every Cast Dwarf campaign felt the same. I disagree with that assessment, because Drazov's campaign is very different than Astrogoth's campaign. Yes, Zaytan has issues, but it's not necessarily because of his starting position. It's partly because the terrain over there is really badly designed, and partly because of how Cast Dwarves work. Like, Cast Dwarves benefit inherently from higher tier settlements. Like, everyone does, but it makes such a marked difference in a Cast Dwarf campaign starting with tier 2 capital versus tier 1 capital. And the fact that you're advancing towards Cafe, and that is your objective, and you have Grimgor in your rear, well, that's especially great. Like, it's the design of the entire area that he's in, not necessarily that he starts where he does. The settlements that he starts with, those are a significant problem. But I understand why Creative Assembly wanted to diversify that, which has a change. It just didn't end up working in either Yanbo's case or Ostankya's case, from my point of view. Now, talking about Ostankya's campaign and the issues that it does have, as I stated, it's not because of where she starts, it's the things she has to deal with during the course of her campaign. One very limiting factor in Ostankya's campaign is that a lot of buildings, including crucially Patriarch recruitment, so you're lacking casualty replenishment, a lot of these things are locked away until you get a control of one of the Kislev cities, or you're allied with a Kislev owner of one of those cities. This is a significant drawback in her campaign. Kislev has really good casualty replenishment. Ostankya is the only Kislev Legionary Lord that doesn't have access to that inherently. But beyond that limitation of not having these things available for a good portion of the early game or the meat of the campaign does happen, it's also what you need to do in order to get to Kislev. And this brings us to problem number 2 in Ostankya's campaign, and the thing that makes this campaign such a miserable slog, and I do mean slog, to actually play. So you have the Witch's Hut over here. Now, in order to get back to Kislev, your best way is to have access to Jinxed Land. The way you get access to Jinxed Land is by getting Spirit Essences. But you need to consume a certain amount of Spirit Essences in order to be able to unlock Jinxed Land. Then you have to fight a quest battle anyway to do so. That's not really the problem. It's not the problem of having to fight the quest battle. It's the problem of the Spirit Essences. So you can get 40 Spirit Essences very quickly, but spending them, geez, that is a frustration and a half. So in order to unlock the top bar abilities, which are really fun and powerful, you need to go every single turn, at the beginning of every single damn turn, and go into this Witch's Hut and use create either blessings or curses. This is dull as dirt. It is genuinely a horrible system to engage in, because the buffs are really powerful, but Kislev's problem is not, and is certainly not Ostankya's issue. Their issues are not the fact that their military might not be strong enough to deal with the opponents they have. The military is absolutely strong enough to do so inherently. No, the problem is every single turn, you're going over here and having to click this button again, and not just one button, multiple buttons. You don't even care what hexes or curses what blessings or curses you're crafting. You just want to maximize how many of them you're crafting per turn, because that is going to get you to Kislev faster, which is going to unlock units. You understand the problem that exists with this. That is a fairly annoying gameplay system to have to deal with. And look, if with the change of her starting position, which hopefully will happen the moment you start your campaign so you can't actually abuse it, but with the change of her starting position, you won't have to push for this as quickly as possible. But if one of the fundamental campaign systems that she has going for her in her campaign is such an annoying piece of crap, that, by the way, is tied to your victory conditions as well. It's not like, oh, these are just secondary things. No, you need to complete all of these to win your campaign. Your short campaign victory condition, long campaign victory condition, doing those quests. That is not the problem. Having to unlock these things is not the problem. How you unlock these certainly is. It's such a boring, tedious, grindy mess of a system that is not fun at all to engage in. Hell, maybe if we could spend, like research and all that, and that would work. But no, it is not fun, it is not engaging, it is boring, it is tedious. And we already have a situation in Warhammer 3 where when you're playing a campaign long enough, you get to a significant level of tedium where you're spending every turn just looking at every settlement, especially if you're building a massive empire, just making sure everything else built properly, making sure your heroes are leveled up properly, making sure your lords are leveled up properly, making sure the item merging is working properly. This is one of the reasons Ostantkia's campaign is so horrible, because on top of that, on top of the inherent issues that happen in Warhammer 3 at the moment, we get to deal with something else. Let me put it like this, in a way I'm sure everyone will understand. Grom's Cauldron is light years ahead of Ostankya's system. And Grom's Cauldron is not a perfect system either. To be certain, I think that it too could use a rework, but at least it's a system that works. And it's not a constant frustration where every single turn you're having to do this. Or you're having to spend longer in a campaign than you ought to just to be able to get back to Kislev. Because this will take time. This will take many turns and many hexes and much spending of spirit essences in order to get back to Kislev. I sure as hell don't understand what Creative Assembly was thinking with this system, and if there's anything that needs to be changed with Ostankya, it is that. It's not even the starting position. If they literally made the system less of a grinding mess to deal with, Ostankya's campaign would be so much better. As for Kislev itself, I'm really curious what they will do. And I absolutely hope that they do add a magical forest over here somewhere in Kislev, right? Somewhere. And I'm certainly hoping for terrain changes with Kislev as well. Province changes, region changes. Because Kislev was one of the worst areas when Immortal Empires launched. It's still one of the worst campaign areas to engage in. They did improve it with the regions, with the addition of proper provincial capitals and the like, but there's still many significant issues. And this doesn't just affect Kislev. It affects every campaign that has to deal with this. It affects Malachai's campaign. I mean, to be sure, Malachi has plenty of freaking options, including conquering all of Norska. But it does affect Fraud's campaign, Azazel's campaign, Arbel's campaign, if you decide to conquer Kislev, and so on and so forth. It's an issue. It's to the point that if you're playing a campaign where you start near Kislev, you don't want to go in Kislev. Unless you're absolutely forced to. And that is not exactly a huge endorsement of the work Creative Assembly has done with the terrain over here. Or the campaign map design in this area. It can be much better. We've seen with Old World how it can be much better. And how we've seen with Forge of the Cast Dwarfs how region changes, province changes can have a massive impact on the enjoyment of campaigns. Because that was one of the chief benefits and one of the reasons Forge of the Cast Dwarfs was such a great DLC. Or the patch accompanying it was such a great patch. Is because it made the Darklands a significantly better area of the campaign to engage in. And that is certainly my hope with regards to Kislev. That's all I had to say. Questine signing out. Don't forget to subscribe, like, and enable notifications. Stay tuned for more.